Candace had a great show tonight. We're going to get into it shortly. Going to go over the important issues, how people responded, and my thoughts. Let's get right into it. First, she talked about the gloves that were found in the SUV, and we've all probably seen pictures by now. There's a mystery pair of gloves that appeared in the SUV. We're not really sure how they got there, or who was wearing them. They're in the passenger back seat on the side where Rick Cutler was sitting, and we're not really sure how they got there. Candace came up with some new evidence from Mikey McCoy's phone, actually, where he's showing that the gloves were not there when Mikey got out of the car. Now, Mikey and Charlie arrived to the event together. I believe they were in the same SUV, and when Mikey got out, he shot a video of himself, and he picked up the door in the process, and it showed that there were no gloves in that door. Let's take a watch.
Actually, what was stuffed in there. And on the right was our recreation. We speculated that these were either leather or used black nitrile gloves like the kind that you see that are sterile, synthetic rubber, among other.
Something that you would use maybe in an emergency, or if you were helping somebody in a medical emergency, things like that. But the question is, why would they take them off? Why would they remove them? Well, let's look at Mikey's footage showing first that they're not there.
And unfortunately, if you are listening to this on just audio, you are going to have to pivot to video to see. Don't worry, we're going to slow it down. You just saw that. Here it is, more slowed down, empty. And we're going to pause so we can just look at the empty abyss of no gloves.
Okay, and then the question truly is why? Why are those gloves there? How did they get there? Why did they take them off?
First wiped it off of his face. So I don't think there would have been any reason for him, already covered in blood, to go, but wait, let me just grab these gloves as the car is going 100 miles per hour. But let's assume he did. Let's assume that was his first thought. He's like, you know what? I'm going to put on some sterile gloves very quickly. Even if he had done that, then we'd make the argument that there's absolutely no reason at all for him to have removed the gloves.
That's correct. And then if you want to see a diagram of how everybody was in the SUV, where they were positioned, things like that, this is how they were positioned. Justin Davis, Dan Flood in the front, Brian Harpole, Rick Cutler in the second row, and that's where Charlie was, and then Frank Turek was in the back here. And the gloves would have been found right here where Rick Cutler seated, and his door is right here, so the gloves are stuffed in the door there. Why? What was on the gloves? What was the purpose with all that? That's what she's asking now. So it's a very good question, and we really need to get some answers to that. She makes a shout out to Frank to try to plead with him, I guess, to get some information from him. Maybe he'll come forward and try to help the investigation. I doubt it, but this is what she tried.
It's coming from Frank. You talk a lot, right? You're a pastor. Can you do your best to remember why or when exactly someone in the car decided it would be a good idea to put gloves on and then to very quickly take them off?
So she's asking him, and also she wants to know if Frank would confirm this story that Brian Harpole told, how he took command of the ER and that whole thing.
Really go a long way if you could just at least confirm Brian Harpole's memories. Is he telling the truth?
Is he telling the truth? Yeah, that's a great question. We need to know the answer. Then she gets into Officer Bagley. I'll just call him Bagley from now on to save time. But he is a character. And this guy, I didn't trust him from the moment I saw him. I didn't get a good feeling. I didn't get good vibes from him. He seemed like very shifty and very dishonest. Very dishonest. So let's take a listen.
Man that finds the screwdriver on the rooftop. The screwdriver, we still don't know if a screwdriver even works for that particular gun.
So Officer Bagley comes in, and then he goes to trial and says all kinds of weird things that don't make any sense. And we're going to talk about that in a second.
Preliminary hearing, take a listen.
It appears to me from reviewing your body camera that there was another individual who was with you that went to the Losi building who was in civilian clothing but appeared to have a gun. Who was that?
I don't know who he was exactly. He had a badge on and and I needed somebody with me to back me up as I ran up the stairs to make sure I had.
I don't believe him for a second. In my opinion, that man is lying right there. That is a lie. That's my opinion, and I am entitled to it. But I don't believe him, and I'm going to show you a list of other things that I found on him just to kind of review what this man is doing. Now, I will. They went on and talked a little bit more about this whole thing and the chaotic scene that was there that day at UVU. Kash Patel saying that the FBI was there within 16 minutes, I think he said, and let's play that real quick.
Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene.
So 16 minutes is pretty quick considering their closest field office is in Salt Lake, which is about 50 minutes away. So that's pretty incredible that they got there in 16 minutes. People have been noticing that lately and talking about it a lot. So back to Bagley. Let's continue with his story and this mysterious person that helped him up on the Losi rooftop.
Who Officer Bagley was with. It was captured by a bystander at 12:47 p.m. Thank you, Candace.
So it was captured, and now we know who that is. And I think it was Muppet Masher or something. I'm not sure what the name was, but let's take a listen.
It is Officer Alan Robertson from the Utah State University Department of Public Safety, Utah State University. So not even a UVU officer. Now, this
not even a UVU officer. So we want to know a little bit more about him. Nisi, who has a great show on YouTube, had a really good video covering this. Let's take a listen.
So they described a man with a badge and a pistol who went with him to the roof. The individual that fits that description is this red hat guy with the khaki shorts. He has a bag with a badge on it, and he was walking around with a handgun. The ex-account Muppet Masher identified the red hat guy as Alan Robertson and his friend in the blue shirt as Christopher Haycock. In the Life is...
So they are clearly directing things. That he is actually, this Alan Robertson guy. He is directing things. When Officer Bagley looks at him, he's looking to him for direction, and it is clear. You know a leader when you see one, and this clearly shows it. This person also turns out to be a Marine, which wasn't surprising to anyone.
And you know what's funny about that? We decided to look into him, and that is actually what he did, but in the military. You see, Alan Robertson is actually a United States Marine. Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so he's a Marine, and it does make sense. Also, it was found out that this Alan Robertson was on something called a Brady List. I'll let Candace tell it.
Brady List website. So if you've never heard of the Brady List website, it's a database of law enforcement officers who have a documented history of misconduct, dishonesty, or integrity violations. And the records are kept actually by prosecutors so that they can then share them with defense attorneys during a criminal trial. The reason is...
So that's why. And he is on that Brady List. And as long as we're talking about this, Officer Bagley, I started thinking a little bit more about it, and I had a conversation with Gemini going back and forth a little bit about, because I was going back to the body cam, and I thought, well, he was awfully casual about his body cam battery running out. And I thought, well, is this really common? Is this something that happens all the time? Police officers can just do whatever and then just come back and say their battery died in their body cam and there's no evidence of it, especially in an active shooter situation or a murder investigation. Is it really a big deal? Because Bagley didn't make it look like it was a big deal. He made it look like it was nothing, like it happens all the time. So I was talking back and forth with Gemini. Gemini's telling me that it is a big deal. It's a big deal. And people have actually been prosecuted and careers have been ruined over this, where they get caught saying that their battery in their body cam had died, but it either turned out that they turned it off, or they weren't being truthful, or they didn't report it. And so that's kind of what it boils down to. But now in Bagley's situation, he couldn't really report it. I think one of the things that you got to do to cover yourself is you have to report it right away that your battery died. You have to tell your commanding officer or somebody or go replace it. Well, he couldn't really do either one of those things right at the moment because it was on an active scene. So he couldn't do that, and that's totally understandable. What's not understandable is what he reported afterward. And so I kind of went back and forth with Gemini asking it questions about certain things. And I asked, was Officer Bagley disciplined for not reporting this? And the answer was no, he wasn't. He actually transferred out of his job several months ago, I guess, or, he's no longer with that department now. So they can't, according to Gemini, they can't go back and take disciplinary measures against someone because he's now in a different department. Well, the real issue isn't that Bagley didn't replace the battery or report it right away. The issue is that he never reported it at all. He never put it in his written report. The next day, or after this whole incident was over, Bagley and all the other officers that were involved in this thing had to sit down nice and calm at their desks and write out these reports. A report of what happened during this whole UVU event. They had to write it out, and Officer Bagley didn't disclose the fact that his body cam battery had died. He didn't put it in his detailed written report the next day, or whenever he did that report. I'm assuming it was the next day. So it was never disclosed. So I thought, well, he never said that. So for 10 months, he was walking around and never told anybody that his body cam battery had died. So I thought, well, what else did he not put in his report that came out later? And I asked Gemini that specific question. I said, can we look at the discrepancies between his official report of the events on September 10th and the reports that came out during the trial? I want to look at the difference between what he wrote in his written report 10 months ago compared to what he said at the trial. Because to me, it looked like he was completely and totally unprepared. Didn't look like he had rehearsed any of the questions with his lawyers or with anybody. It almost looked like a deer in the headlights situation, like he was just caught off guard, which was really strange to me at the time, and it still is. So Gemini came back and said, okay, you want a list of the discrepancies between his written report and what came out 10 months later in this preliminary trial? Then the first one is the red and black screwdriver. In his written report, he made absolutely no mention of a screwdriver being present at the crime scene. But, of course, on the stand, you all heard what he said about the red and black screwdriver. Also, the sniper pad description. In his written report, he noted finding a little bit of disturbed gravel, but that's it. But on the stand, in the trial, he dramatically escalated the description under oath, and introducing the term sniper pad to the record, he testified for the first time that the gravel had been unmistakable, distinct impressions of a shooter lying in prone, explicitly stating, "You've got markings of elbows, knees, and feet." That was really descriptive compared to what he did in his written report. Just said there was a little bit of disturbed gravel. That's all he said. The third thing is the direction of the gunshot. In his written report, the initial report failed to specify or track where the fatal shot originated. It simply documented that a shot was fired and chaos broke out. During the trial, Bagley testified that he immediately recognized the distinct crack of a rifle shot and instinctively turned his attention straight forward on the Losi Center roof. Nothing like that in his written report. The fourth thing, the body cam blackout. In his written report, the report entirely hid the fact that his body-worn camera stopped working, leaving a total documentation blind spot regarding his time spent securing the roof. But in the trial, then under fierce cross-examination, Bagley admitted his camera cut out entirely after only 27 minutes. He said it was due to a dead battery. And then it also said that there was abandoned evidence and plainclothes officers. Those were discrepancies in his initial written report 10 months ago. It omitted the fact that he spotted a physical weapon holster during his sweep, and it did not document any other individuals on the roof. In the trial testimony, Bagley admitted on the stand that he saw an empty pistol holder lying in the grass, but intentionally chose not to take custody of it during an active shooter situation when they hadn't even caught the person yet, which is totally strange. And he also admitted that an unidentified person claiming to be a plainclothes officer accompanied him to the Losi Center roof, a security breach completely absent from his initial paperwork. That's 5 or 6 things right there, the list that Gemini came up with just after I questioned it a little bit, and quite incredible to me. Very suspicious, and I don't like this guy. This guy is not telling us the truth. I think somebody got to him and formed the story according to what they wanted it to be, and they just made it fit and hope for the best. But they just look like a bunch of people just making it up as they go, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. So back to Candace. She talked about an interesting thing where the military seems to be asking for troops' opinions as to what they could do to punish Iran. Let me show you.
National ideas to punish Iran. The request came from a senior officer at the U.S. military command carrying out President Donald Trump's war with Iran. It came in an
So they're asking for troops' opinions on what they could do to punish Iran for this whole thing. Very strange. Also, she touched on the fact that Charlie did not support these wars. And when Erika was asked about this, she didn't seem very clear on her answer. She seemed like, well, I'm not really sure what Charlie would have done. You know, we have video. That was one of the dumbest answers I've ever heard in my life. Let's play it.
with the Iran war. He would support him. Okay. Erika said, he's not here to tell us what he would think. All we have are old clips. And you know what? She was right about that. We do have old clips. I saw some of this going around on Instagram. Take a listen.
Yeah, no, to answer your question, my husband isn't here to say whether or not we should be at war with Iran. I would love for him to be here right now and tell us if we should or should not. I would love it. I miss his voice more than anyone in this world.
This person is not very smart. She really just is not smart. I'm sorry. That's just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. To think that anybody would believe what she's saying. We all have video of Charlie all over the place. We know what he would say. We know what his opinion was. Let's take a listen.
This is more pushing for Iran. But is that America's problem? That's I mean, maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is, you know what? They were wrong about Iraq. They were wrong about Syria. They were wrong about Afghanistan. They were wrong about the Taliban. They were wrong about Libya. They were wrong about the Arab Spring. They were wrong about Yemen. They were wrong about the Arabian Peninsula. They were wrong about the 9/11 hijackers being Saudi Arabian. But hey, 10th time's a charm.
Right? So is there any ambiguity there at all? I don't think so. Then she gets into some comments. I'll play a couple of them real quick.
I think the most disheartening thing is that this will all be exposed and there will still be no consequences.
Not even a remote chance of that. This is going to be blown wide open. It already is, actually, in my opinion. And Candace says the same thing. She is positive that this is going to bring out a lot. Charlie's death will not be in vain. He will be the reason why so many people unite and come together and try to figure this thing out. And it's not just to avenge him. It's to root out the bad things that are going on. People, things that are happening and have been happening under darkness for such a long time. We need to root it out, and we need to get it out of our system, of our government. And these things need to stop. They've been going on for far too long. Let's take a listen to one more comment.
Jessica Tamburo writes, I cannot comprehend the amount of evil that took place that day. Like I said, I just have so much that has to wait for the right time for us to share.
So if you listen closely to what she just said, there is so much more that she's going to get to. And I, for one, believe it. She is going to drop a lot more. And if anybody can do it, she can. She was in a position to bring this information forward, and she was close enough to Charlie to be able to, and luckily she saved everything. If it were me, I probably would have deleted many of the messages and things that she's been putting out there. But I do believe that she has a lot more to come, and I'm hoping that she does. So I'll continue to report on it daily, and I'll get these videos out as quickly as possible so that you can review it if you don't have time to watch her, or if you just want to go over the information again to try to digest what she's saying in a quicker format. Then that's what these videos are for. You can follow me on X at JPTruthProbe, and you can email me at jptruthprobe@gmail.com, whatever you like. Please drop a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel if you do, and I appreciate it. All of your input, your comments, and your feedback really does help a lot. So I appreciate it, and please let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video. You guys have a good one.